This is a slightly older interview I did with Craig Immel from the project GoKey. Now they're looking at doing some really cool, innovative things in the real estate industry and incorporating blockchain into it as well. And of course, they're building on Cardano. Now they're running an ISPO and we were the partners behind that to build up their interface. So that is the dashboard that you would see if you're a part of the GoKey ecosystem. If there are bugs or anything, let us know. We're more than happy to fix them out and refine that particular product that we have there. In this interview, we cover quite a few things. Like I said, it is a little bit old now, but it's still highly relevant. So check it out. All the links, everything, references in the show notes for you as well on our website, learncardano.io. Right, let's get into it. Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Pete. Thank you for having me.
Okay. You're building out GoKey. And I looked over the project. It looks really cool what you're trying to do. Can you explain to the audience in a nutshell exactly what it is and what problem you're trying to solve there?
The problem we're trying to solve is really where we started. So, I've been involved in entrepreneurship for a long time, and I learned that the best projects start with like a big, hairy, complicated problem. And property ownership and kind of generational wealth building, more and more people are kind of being locked out of that opportunity, which is always something that's been sort of fundamental to the American experience or the American dream, if you subscribe to that. So, we want to find new ways to use this technology to help people access home ownership or property ownership. So, it really started off thinking about homeownership, but, as we kind of worked more through the space, we realized, this could be helpful for like a small business who's rented a storefront for 5 years and they have a successful business and they've decided we really need to buy this property. So, we have more control over the future of our business. So, but basically what we're doing is kind of a three-pronged approach that we think is like completely novel. I've never seen another project do anything quite like this. So we're tokenizing property, which other projects and platforms are doing using NFTs. And not only just tokenizing like the fee simple title of a property, but also recognizing that within that there exists what is referred to as a bundle of rights. So, your right to possess a property or your right to borrow money against it or put a mortgage on it or encumber it in some way. There are quite a few of these rights that actually can all be tokenized, and the tokens can represent individual rights and for different durations of time. So you can start to do some really interesting things there. We also have had a lot of requests for like more investment style products that we said, that's not really what we're doing. We're trying to help owner occupants, right now. And we didn't want to start getting into like securities or security tokens or anything like that just yet. We kind of had that further out on the roadmap. But we started thinking about it more and talking to more people, and we decided to start a DAO to allow community members to co-invest and manage property. And this can be actually a really powerful concept towards advancing our mission because, we've discovered that we can even have tenants. Let's say GoKey owns a 20-unit apartment building. We can even have our long-term tenants in the property become members of the DAO and have kind of some skin in the game, have some say in how the roof over their head is operated. And, potentially when they decide to leave their lease or their apartment or whatever it is, maybe they're walking away with kind of some equity that they've helped build through their DAO membership.
But you mentioned a couple of really interesting things there. And the first thing is that tokenizing of the property rights. So you said that this is common in a few other projects, but I haven't seen it myself.
Now, I absolutely love that idea because then it gives people that opportunity to actually own a property, but not provide that whole collateral or loan amount that they need to actually buy a large property. So can you talk a little bit more about that and how that mechanics actually works and how the legal aspects work around that, and how I could use a tokenized property to get another property in the future?
I'll go backwards in time just a little, just to provide a little more context. And the first thing to know is that part of the GoKey project is really more our peer-to-peer smart contract type of platform that we're working on. So let me tell you a little story. So I lived up in the state of Colorado in the US for a long time, and I spent a lot of time living in the mountains. And that's really where I first got into the real estate business. Like the prices of mountain real estate, I mean, it was an amazing town. Land there, public land there was pretty scarce because a lot of it was owned by like national forests and other federal agencies. So, the writing was on the wall, like as more people discover this place and start to work, remotely using the internet, which was kind of something that was kind of a newer phenomenon at the time. It was pretty clear property prices were going to start going up. So like if I wanted to be able to afford to buy property there sometime, I probably needed to also be involved in the property business as my job, right? So so I got into it that way, and then I eventually did buy a home, and it was great. But about a year later, I was so interested in like how do you put big real estate deals together? Like what if I wanted to build a small community of like-minded people, and we all wanted to own, a small piece of like a 40-acre parcel of property. How do you do that, and how do you get the financing for construction and all that? So I decided to attend graduate school, and I moved to Denver, the capital of Colorado, and I worked on a master's degree in real estate and construction management. But when I moved into town, I still owned my house in the mountains, and I was like, oh wow, I'm a renter again. This is not great. I wonder if I can buy a house. And it's like, I probably can't because I'm a student and I have pretty much a brand new mortgage on another house like 100 miles away from here. So I started looking into, what are some other more creative ways to approach this problem? And, I looked into like things like owner financing, which is a great way to buy a house. Like if, say I wanted to buy a house from you and you owned it free and clear, I could just make monthly payments directly to you, maybe make a small down payment or whatever terms we decide on. And at the end of that, you just give me the title and we're all good. Or maybe I finance it for like 5 years from you. And after 5 years, I've kind of built up some equity and I go get a loan from a bank or what. And it's just that much easier to get the loan. But another option that I discovered was a lease with a purchase option. And it was something like, as a real estate agent, like you're never really trained to utilize for people because it's not something that generates a commission for you as a real estate agent or any of the other intermediaries like quickly. And that's kind of the name of the game in that business. But for a potential home buyer, like it's probably the best possible scenario to buy a house. If you're renting a place and you have a landlord who's like, you know what, you rent it for 2 years, I'll sell it to you for X amount of dollars at the end of 2 years. Like you've rented for a while, maybe your landlord credits some of the rental payments that you've made to your closing. And, maybe if you're in kind of a hot market, like if you agreed to buy the house for $200,000, but at the end of 2 years, it's actually worth $220,000, then you also have this kind of like, little spread there that it's kind of a form of soft equity that you've also earned. And me as a construction guy, I was also looking for a house that maybe needed some work to be done on it. So like, let's say the owner and you see this a lot with like older, especially older rental property owners, is like sometimes they're kind of property rich but cash poor. So like maybe they want to sell a place, but it needs some repairs, but they don't necessarily have the cash to put into it. So if you're renting and you know that you have an option to buy that is rock solid, then you can feel comfortable like putting in some sweat equity too and increasing the value of the property that way. So at the end of that 2 years, you can really have some, kind of some real skin in the game built up, even though your name isn't on the title, right? So it's just kind of a totally different way of building equity. But a big problem with that is like, some shady people have kind of made promises to people like, yeah, I will lease this property to you with an option to buy it. And then the renter, pays their payments on time every month for 2 years or whatever the term is. And basically they get rugged by the property owner. And they're like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to sell it to you. Come sue me or whatever. So, sure, you could go sue them, but practically speaking, it probably doesn't make sense for most people to bother with that. So they kind of lick their wounds and go on down the road. But like with a smart contract, and a tokenized property, you could, have this transparent, immutable contract out there. So both sides, even if they don't know each other, can have this level of security that the deal is going to work out in the end. So that's kind of one example of like when you tokenize the property and the different rights. So like in this case, like you might have an NFT that represents like 1 month of a rental. You might have a separate NFT that represents the option contract itself. And then also like a fee simple NFT, because you have kind of these different moving parts. So it kind of makes sense to have different NFTs that represent kind of different aspects of the deal.
Really, really interesting. I didn't know there was that option for a lease to own kind of arrangement with the landlord. I can see that being really, really appealing for someone that's wanting to own the property. It makes it really easy. It's like, rent to own, lease to own arrangements. That's absolutely fantastic. But from a property owner's point of view, I think it's very particular to some sort of properties, like you said, like a cash poor property owner that needs to spend money on the property. So it's very particular, or maybe even off the plan developers that are struggling to get sales, like just have those lease to own options to get people through the door, sell the properties, and then the developer can move on. So I can see some very niche options there for property owners to make it a little bit more appealing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really kind of the idea behind it. Not every property transaction fits into this nice standardized box that, that really the mortgage industry and the real estate, brokerage industry has kind of developed along with people on Wall Street, at least in the US, we have these securitized mortgages. So like, that's a main reason there's so much paperwork involved with a typical deal. It's because, the investors into the securities at the very end of the line in New York, like obviously they know nothing about the property in Colorado or whatever. So they need a very standardized set of checklists and assurances all down the line to make sure that the securities have value. And it's even more standardized now than it was in 2008, because like that was kind of what caused the meltdown in the first place, was like they didn't realize like some of the mortgages that came through the system were just really poorly written, or the underlying property assets weren't worth what maybe they were led to believe that there were. But it's like a lease option, you're right, like a lot of people have no idea it exists. A lot of people I've talked to really had no idea that you can even buy a property without using an agent or without a mortgage or things like that. And it's just an asset. Like if I wanted to buy a house from you, we could almost write it on the back of a napkin and take it down and record it. And, as long as it has all the core components of a legal contract, it's a deal. But like for property sellers, like it can work out really nice because like, a lot of people who've been in the rental business for a long time, they start getting older maybe, and they want to maybe unwind their positions, but they're like, why not work with this renter? Because like I already have a buyer, so I don't have to pay an agent to go find a buyer and lose 6 to 7% of my deal right off the top, right? So I've already got a buyer, and you don't have to worry about making repairs probably, because the lease-to-own or lease option type deal is usually, kind of an as-is type of deal. So, it's not right for everyone, but for a lot of people, it's perfect. But a lot of people don't know that it's an option, and they don't know that they can do it securely. So that's really what GoKey is trying to bring to the table.
And I could also see the property owners rug pulling, especially if the area where they're selling the property value skyrockets, and it doesn't go up just 20%, but 50, 60%, and the property owner just go, I don't think so. That agreement that we agreed to 2 years ago, not happening anymore. So I can see that happening if that situation was in play as well. But with the smart contracts, that kind of locks everything in place. So very, very key there. Now, the other thing that you're talking about was that DAO for the property ownership and the co-investment of the managed property. That's a really cool idea, especially if you're renting in a big complex or something. And here in Australia, we have body corporates that look after building apartments and building committees that argue over tiny little aspects like the color of the railing out there. But why is that a big deal? But I don't know. But having the DAO in place so that the people that actually live in there can actually make an impact and change and control some of the direction of the building, and then actually walk away with some ownership of equity. That's amazing. That's a really, really cool idea. What are the legal aspects around that? Like, how can you make that possible?
Yeah. So, the honest answer is like, we're still trying to discover what exactly those look like. There haven't been a whole lot of real estate investment DAOs set up yet. And, none of them have more than a few years track record at the very most. So It's really hard to say right now. Basically we're putting the idea out there and, starting small. Basically we're going to look at like, say we do like a small pilot project and like buy a property that's maybe less than $500,000 or something like that. And kind of take it from there. If you ask an attorney, or let's say you ask 10 attorneys, you're probably going to get 10 different answers of what is reasonable or what's legal. And so, I hate to say that there's sort of a gray area there, but, there is. And I think we all have to be honest about that. But, I think like worst case scenario, if you start setting up a DAO that starts to look like a security, you just go register it as a security. I mean, that's not that big of a deal really. And it probably opens you up to a lot more flexibility and options because you kind of know you're covered either way. You can probably start feeling more comfortable about accepting many more members into a DAO. And, if you're trying to make this type of property accessible for kind of everyday people, everyday investors, tenants who are members, these aren't necessarily people who are going to be able to just throw 5 million ADA at the deal, right? So you're going to have to use like a higher number or a higher volume of members to achieve the same kind of goals. So fortunately, I do have some background in real estate securitization, and here in the US, like we do have some pretty good tools to use in terms of like private Reg D offerings and different types of exemptions within there, including like relatively newer, within the last decade, different types of crowdfunding rules and things like that. So, we really have all the tools to pull it off. We just kind of have to kind of see where the market is, see where people's interests lie in doing it. But, it's a fascinating deep dive. That's what we talked about at our blockchain meetup last night for about 2 hours, and just all kinds of different DAOs, all kinds of different purposes, all types of legal aspects and considerations. So, but it does feel like probably the most viable path forward to help people who are not in a single family type of rental or lease arrangement build equity. Like, it's hard to give people equity in like an apartment building using just all the normal tools in the securities toolbox. So hopefully a DAO can let us advance down that road.
Well, it sounds like you have some of the legal frameworks there in the States to make this all happen, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think a lot of people have this weird aversion to becoming a security. So if you're setting up a token, don't do the security token, it's too hard. It's just more paperwork, really, and more paperwork, more legals. If you're a serious project and you want to be seen in the eyes by regulators as being serious, you might as well just become a securitized token project and just go down that path. It does cost more money. It does mean more legal aspects to it, and you have to be more careful with everything about it. But, if you're a serious project, you might as well just go down that path. So this aversion to it is quite strange to me.
Yeah. I think it's like a little bit of fear of the unknown. People just don't, it in the crypto community, that it raises a lot of concerns, just because, I don't know, I think people think it's just kind of a scary word in a lot of ways. But, prior to launching GoKey, I was preparing kind of another business model where we would build these like kind of fourplex homes, and that were small enough where you could kind of get the zoning and put them in a lot of different cities in the US. And we were going to go out and raise money, and we found a platform, like a crowdfunding platform, but it would also be a registered type of security. I mean, it's sort of exempt, but it required some filings, but like $2,500, was what we were going to have to pay to set up the corporation in Delaware and create, get all the paperwork done. And it's been done so many times that like a lot of attorneys now just have templates for it and everything. So it's really not that scary.
Yeah, 2,500. It's not that big of a deal. You could raise that through a small NFT project. It's quite easy to do. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's pretty interesting. It's really good that we talked about that as well. And the last thing that you talked about, the token value as a medium of exchange, and then the token being used so that people can save their money as property prices run up. Is that still at really early stages? Like, can you talk a little bit more and explain about how that would possibly work and how I, as a user, would use that token to save for a property?
Sure. So in terms of where we're at on it, it is pretty early. Like, we spent quite a few months kind of spinning our wheels a little bit in terms of trying to decide exactly how we were going to do this. So originally the idea was like, well, let's burn tokens from the total supply, because, over a longer time frame, real estate prices trend up, right? They maybe go down for a year, 2 years maybe, but longer term it goes up. So we could probably just burn tokens. But when you start really digging more into like the securities aspects of what might make a utility or payment token a security, burning could potentially make it so that it gives the appearance that the token value is heavily influenced by one small group of people. So like, people making or trying to make money through the efforts of others. So, some of the guidance that we had kind of said, well, if you mint and burn tokens and it's based on an oracle, just a price feed of price action on real estate prices, then it's really just a function of the market kind of dictating the supply. It's not really just a person doing it. But we minted the GoKey tokens pretty early on, back in June of 2021, I think it was. So we have a locked token policy, and we also don't have decimals. So we started looking at issuing a V2 of the token, which you've seen other projects have to do. Kind of a pain in the ass, really, especially once your token's trading on several dexes and things like that. And then, so we really started thinking about, like, well, what can we do? There's got to be something that actually makes more sense. So we started thinking, like, well, if we're going to have a DAO, we're going to have a treasury, maybe the treasury can buy back and sell tokens to adjust kind of the supply that's out in circulation and approach it that way. So we really just landed on that idea a few weeks ago. So the next steps would be, ideally, this would be done through a smart contract and an oracle. Some of the major, for example, the residential real estate price feed that we would use is known as the Case-Shiller index. It's the preeminent home price index in the United States. It's put together by a professor at Yale and his partners, and it's just super solid methodology. They have an API that, we've talked to Oracle providers who can take the API, work their magic, put it into a smart contract, and then we adjust the supply that way, in some proportion to how the prices go up and down. So still working on that on the smart contract side and on the Oracle side. So quite a few things to pull together there that they could probably explain to you better than I could. But then when it comes to the token itself, we envision it as being, quite a few different things, really. So, if you think about all the things we've discussed that GoKey is working on between the DAO and the peer-to-peer smart contracts, and then even some other ideas that are further out on the roadmap, such as a marketplace, or maybe we have a place where people can trade options to buy properties and things like that. We want to have one token that basically is payments and utilities for the entire ecosystem. So you could make your payments in GoKey tokens. You could, if a landlord wanted to maybe incentivize their best renters to stick around or stay, maybe renters earn rewards denominated in GoKey tokens. Quite a few different ideas for how people could accumulate the tokens and save them. Of course, people can just buy them on the open market as, sort of a proxy to having exposure to the real estate markets as well, because of the supply adjustment mechanism.
Very, very cool. Lots of really interesting ideas there to implement, and a lot of work for you guys to get that all in play. So it's I guess a little bit while down to go. And you're right, there are a few projects that are doing a swap of the token mechanism as well. It's not too hard to do, but you do have to organize everyone in the community to go ahead and swap their tokens. So it's a bit of a pain, I guess, to try and force people to swap tokens over. Yeah.
And the longer you wait to do it, like the more challenging it becomes. It seems like it would be exponentially more difficult than if we had done it like back in November or December.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Okay. Now, there's a really cool factor or really cool feature in your peer-to-peer contracts that I was reading through on the light paper, and it's the no-code smart contracts. And that's really appealing to anyone using the platform. So a buyer or renter that is going through the platform and trying to create a smart contract with the seller. And you don't need to pull in a developer or something like that to write a smart contract. So what's the idea and premise around this? And what's the user experience like for the buyer and seller with a no code smart contract? And why is it no code? Like, how does that work?
Well,
what magic are you pulling here?
Just magic. That's all I need to say.
Okay.
No, so yeah, I mean, obviously there is code on the back end, but the idea is that people can come to the GoKey website and enter into our app, and we will have a smart contract library that it's not too unlike when you can buy a digital sell purchase agreement for real estate online already. And it's basically a template that works, it's kind of pre-approved for individual states, and it basically has blanks so you fill in. So, the smart contract would work in much the same way. So, a couple of different ways we've thought about approaching that is that we can build the smart contracts using something like a Marlowe, and then put like just a easier to use UI on top of that, just so your average person can just come in, fill in their name, whatever information they need, the terms of the agreement, price, all of that kind of thing. We can have even an option like, do you want to have like a no smoking provision in the contract? And they could click something and say, yes or no. And if they do, it would just pull into the smart contract, like you can't smoke in here while you're leasing the property or things like that. So, luckily we've run across some other groups developing things like this. So, for our DAO, for example, we've partnered with Clarity Protocol, who are developing no-code DAO tooling, very similar to what several projects are already doing on Ethereum, for example. Super easy to just go in, drag and drop different components, and the back end pulls a smart contract together. The way we originally met the guys at Clarity and their other project, Clear Contracts, was they were working on the same thing, this like no-code UI for just basic smart contracts and smart contract libraries. So, basically, over time, GoKey would host this library of smart contract templates for, starting with like 2 or 3 use cases, like an owner financing use case, a lease purchase agreement type use case. And, we can expand over time. We can make those open source so people in the community could share them. They have a really interesting concept with their smart contracts. People who build the smart contracts can earn almost like a royalty, like whenever someone uses it and pays a small fee to use and deploy the smart contract, then the developer kind of can get compensated for the work they put into it at that time as well. So that's kind of the concept there. We'd really like to build out like some prototypes so that people could really visualize more what it's going to look like once it gets going. But I think we're a few months out on that as well.
That is really cool. I absolutely love that approach. Just fill in a form, smart contract is formulated in the back end. People just sign it essentially, and away you go. So that's absolutely beautiful. And I'd love to see the platform and play around with it when you get up to that point. And I heard that Clarity Protocol actually teamed up with M Labs as well to work on those pre-templated contracts that they're doing for their DAO. So yeah, I guess you guys are in good hands then with your smart contracts by proxy, just because everything just cascades down. So that's absolutely amazing. That's really cool for you guys.
I think so. I think you're right about that. And another important part of that is that the contracts themselves will be audited so that, each party to a contract doesn't have to worry about the security of the contract, or GoKey doesn't even have to worry about it that much, because each one will kind of be pre-vetted and audited, prior to going into the library.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to have to pay for a smart contract audit for each and every one that goes through it. That would just make it, capital inefficient and have to spend all this money on all these contracts that go through the platform. But yeah, these pre-templated ones that are already pre-programmed, pre-ready to go and audited, absolutely amazing. That's really, really cool, and a really good way to scale the product as well. And talking about scaling, now that you're focusing purely in the US at the moment, can you take this model and scale it in other countries? Considering that there are all these other legal aspects that you need to deal with, and the framework very well there in the United States, can you take it to other countries and scale it there as well?
Yes, we can. I think it is going to come down to which countries, right? So we're pretty confident right now that we could pretty quickly use this concept in pretty much any country that whose like land tenure and legal system is kind of an outgrowth of English common law, right? So Australia, New Zealand, probably a place like Belize, which was formerly known as British Honduras, almost anywhere, that was part of the former British Empire. So, which is a pretty large footprint and covers a lot of people and a lot of property. Where we really haven't had time to really dig in is where, countries that are more based on like civil law and Napoleonic code and things like that. And then all the other countries whose legal systems that, I have no idea. When I was in graduate school, the University of Denver had a really cool like global real estate project where basically they had a database of pretty much every country on the globe and kind of started to dive into the legal frameworks of each individual nation. And, they were, just kind of told you the nuts and bolts about what you needed to know. Like, first of all, to make a decision, like, should I even consider trying to invest here or do anything here at all? And then if the answer is yes, then you can dig in a little more and, any kind of like big legal considerations that you might not have thought of. Sometimes they like try to make you aware of things like that. But I could totally see, GoKey rolling out in Australia, England, and a lot of other places that, where the legal frameworks look very similar to the US.
That's really cool. That's really good for your product and vision as well, that knowing that you can possibly move out to those other countries. Now, in building out this platform, you must have a decent team that you've formulated and to be able to piece things together for you. How many people and how many members on the team at the moment?
So, we have 4 members officially. So we have a community manager, Jimmy. We have a compliance manager. His name is Will. And we have a content manager named Richard. And really what we're all doing right now is working on getting the word out about GoKey and what we're trying to do and opening the doors to new partnerships, new market opportunities, and things like that. On the technical side of things, to this point, we've really had to rely more on outside partners and contractors. So, that's where teams like Clarity come in, and, MLabs, when we can get, to a point where we can get into their very busy work schedule, and other groups like that. So, it's been, because GoKey was launched kind of late last year, having some like past experience looking at the crypto markets, like we kind of went into this with an abundance of caution, not trying to, necessarily raise a ton of money right away, not necessarily trying to throw a lot of money around, and not necessarily trying to bring a lot of people onto a payroll right away, because at the time we launched, it looked like kind of the broader market could kind of go either way. Like we could see $100,000 Bitcoin, or we could see a $25,000 Bitcoin. So we've just really tried to focus on staying super lean, staying kind of general in what we're trying to do, because at the end of the day, we have been kind of a group of people still trying to figure out exactly what's the best way to solve this problem that GoKey's working on. So we've tried to kind of keep things sort of lean and mean for right now.
Cool. Very good. And probably the safest approach, considering from December to now, you look at markets, wow, it's quite red, although it's recovered right now at the moment that I'm looking at things. So it's looking slightly better than it was yesterday. But still, it's been quite a tough week at the moment. So taking that lean approach, definitely the right thing to do. And the other thing that you're doing is working with partners to actually get things off the ground and fill in some of those gaps in terms of the technical skills. And I probably should mention that, you've also partnered with us to help out with the ISPO dashboard and build up some of that interface so that your delegates to your ISPO can get some details about it and actually see their rewards and everything they're earning about it. So on going from that, let's talk about the ISPO. So you started an ISPO to try and raise funds to try and build out the project. Can you talk about some of the details around that?
Yeah. So first of all, man, so excited to work with you and tell people more about the products that you're building, because falls perfectly in line with kind of the model we're running with right now in terms of partnerships, letting our partners do what they're best at and, trying to kind of stay out of their way. I kind of approach all of this from, for better or for worse, from the mindset of like a construction contractor, right? Like you put together teams, good teams, you get the best people at the table who are best at what they do, and you try to make sure to keep all the pieces coordinated and moving forward to achieve success, at the end. But a big part of what GoKey's trying to do, what we're offering is a little bit of abstract real estate concepts, and we want people to use GoKey. And our philosophy is that GoKey needs to be super simple to use. So I've always said, blockchain in general, Cardano, all the others need to be as easy to use as WordPress is for building websites to really get mass adoption. And so that's why I was so excited to see what you're working on with CardanoPress, because I think it really starts to bring that vision to reality. And I think it's a super valuable piece of the pie. But when it comes to the ISPO, we want to be involved in the decentralization of Cardano by operating a stake pool. We do need to raise money and have delegators to help cover the cost of that and get our delegation up so we can consistently net blocks and not only break even, but start to make a profit, but also to raise funds for further development of the project. And Cardano is so lucky to have the ISPO model. It would kind of be silly not to be involved with it in some way. So early on, we're going to offer X number of GoKey tokens per ADA that's staked per epoch. So we'll be announcing the exact number here pretty soon, and then we'll also have a pre-ISPO bonus. It's going to look a lot like kind of the Cardano model, where the longer you stake pre-ISPO, the greater your multiplier in terms of GoKey tokens will be. But we've had a lot of people who are interested in accumulating GoKey tokens, but aren't necessarily interested in letting go of their ADA, and I can't really blame them. So really love the model, but when we really started thinking about it, we started thinking about in terms of the DAO, Like, we could, after the ISPO runs, we could, of course, leave the stake pool open, and we could go back to, just doing more of a conventional, 5% ADA back, roughly APY. Or we could say, people who stake to our stake pool could channel their rewards towards tokenized real estate and become a member of a DAO. So it just really got us thinking about all the different ways you can utilize and leverage your stake pools, really for the good of the entire community. So just really excited about it, and excited to work with you on it, and excited to have the opportunity to have like an ISPO dashboard on the GoKey website where people can delegate from the website. They can calculate their rewards. They can access different parts of the website, different content based on what they have in their wallet. And people can interact with the website all without like doing a typical login. It's just connect your wallet and you're there. So it's a beautiful system.
Yeah, we really wanted to make that integration process, like building a DApp integration with a DApp, a wallets and etc. It's quite time consuming, and we did it once, so we thought we might as well just replicate it again, and now anyone else in the community can use it. So I'm absolutely loving that you guys are using it for your website, and that we can help participate and build out the dashboard for the ISPO around it. So we'll probably have to wait to learn about the exact details about how many tokens are going to be exchanged in that process. But people should be able to delegate to the pool and be able to earn those extra bonuses. And the official start date would probably be around the end of May. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we're looking at the end of Epoch 342, which ends on May 31st. So June 1st, people should be able to start delegating, at least those who aren't delegated in the pre-ISPO. But June 1st would kind of be the first date that the ISPO would kick off.
Is this going to be a 100% margin pool, or is it going to be a standard margin pool? Because at the moment, I checked a little bit earlier, it's at 3% at the moment.
Yeah, we're running at 3% right now, and but we will still pay pre-ISPO rewards, but on May 31st, June 1st, it'll become a 100% pool or a 99% pool.
So what does the roadmap for the project look like from here on in? So what are we going to see in the next few months and by the end of the year?
So I'll start with the DAO. Our concept with the DAO is, as this tooling develops with our partners at Clarity, we should be able to have our on-chain DAO set up in about 6 months. But in the meantime, we're going to have essentially an off-chain DAO using Discord. They have a really cool bot that they've developed that can give our early DAO members voting rights based on what's in their wallet. So we're kind of coming at this from the idea that we're going to have this off-chain DAO to help really set the course for our on-chain DAO. We want to kind of start utilizing the hive mind as quickly as we can. So I think we'll probably have the best ideas and the best outcome if we get more people involved early in what the on-chain DAO is going to look like, because once that goes on chain, can be kind of hard to roll something back if we design it in a way that maybe we didn't think through very well. So that's going to be really a core focus for the next several months while the ISPO is running. And then we're going to circle back to the peer-to-peer smart contracts. That's although that was kind of the original core concept of GoKey, as we've put the ideas out there, the market has kind of been more receptive to the DAO idea and the investment property type of idea. So we're trying to give people what they want from that aspect first, take what we learn about developing those smart contracts and everything, and then hopefully have at least one or two of our peer-to-peer smart contract templates up and running, or at least in a testing stage by 2 quarters from now.
All right, very good. So by the end of the year, we might be able to play with something and see something in action. So that's absolutely awesome. All right. So for everyone that's interested in the platform, the protocol, and everything that you guys are building out, where should we go? How do we find out more information? And what is the best platform to engage with you guys?
Awesome. Well, the best place to find all of our socials and channels is our website, GoKey.network. A link to our Discord is there. We do have a Telegram. It's a little bit less trafficked, and we don't use that quite as often.
Oh, I hate Telegram.
Twitter.
It's just full of spam. Like, everyone should just get rid of Telegram, really.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about kind of just seeing if people would mind if we just get rid of it, and just kind of channel people to where we could communicate more and at a higher level of quality with them. Those are our main channels. We do publish some writing and things. We have a Medium. But it's all there on our website if you kind of scroll down to the bottom of the homepage. And we are actually getting ready to update the website with a little bit more clarity of our vision as it continues to evolve.
Absolutely awesome. I'll put the links to everything down below in the video description so people can find all the information there. And Craig, it's been awesome chatting to you and learning more about the GoKey project and what you guys are trying to build, all the partnerships and everything that you're doing at the moment. It's absolutely amazing. So thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Man, so happy to be here. I'm a big fan, Pete. So I'm so excited to work with you. And always impressed by just all the work you're doing and the quality of the work you're doing. So hopefully we can chat again soon.
Thank you, Craig, for sharing your wealth of knowledge there and being on that podcast. And also thank you to you guys for listening and watching to the end of this video as well. Now, if you're interested in anything, all the links are down below for you so you can find out more about the project, GoKey, and everything around the ecosystem that they've built. Also check out the DAO infrastructure stuff. I've got reference links and interviews there for you as well, so you can check them out and find out what else they're doing in the ecosystem and all those partners and whatnot that they're incorporated in as well. We've also have a catalyst proposal for our CardanoPress plugin, the plugin that we built to help provide and support the GoKey ISPO with their dashboard as well. So if you're interested in running your own ISPO dashboard and you like the look and feel of how the GoKey one works, you can support that project by voting for us in Project Catalyst. All right, that's it for me for this video. There's a lot more coming out. We have a lot of interviews lined up and I'm looking forward to getting them all out for you. All right, see you in the next video.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.